Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the 2.5 Therapists. Yes, we have decided on the name of the podcast after our first recording. My name is Gorgon Ng. I'm a professional counsellor in New Zealand.
And I'm Alex Coton, and I'm a game developer and half of a therapist. And I have about 1/4 of a cup of tea left for the rest of the show.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm Simon, also a therapist, so I'm a +1. And together we make 2.5 therapists.
Ta-da! That explains the name. Yeah. So you can find content relating to life, well-being, and our special interest by following this podcast. So guys, how are things going on in your life for the past weeks? You know, any challenges, victories, learning point, or leveling up moment?
Yeah, well, I haven't mentioned this on the podcast yet, but I'm about to be a father. Our baby is due in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Cool.
So that's
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. That's really, really exciting. And I just hope we haven't forgot too much stuff so that when we get to the hospital, we're actually allowed to take our baby home. Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be exciting, okay. Alex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dropped a bit of a bombshell there, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's huge news. And my partner and I are both very happy and taking it slow at the moment. So, yeah. And it won't be soon, though.
Can you elaborate a bit more? Because I guess people listening wouldn't know the context of what do you mean you can't see? Is it because of lockdown? Is it so people an idea of what we're going through at the moment?
Yeah, you're right, of course. So, obviously being in New Zealand at the moment, we're in the middle of a phase 4 lockdown, which means that we can't really we can't go into any restaurants or cafes. We can't mix with anyone else. We have to stay in the house with the people we live with. So luckily at the moment, I'm living with my partner in my parents' house, which is, for the time being, which is perfect. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite helpful in that sense.
Yeah, that's big news. Yeah, that's good to hear. And you're able to go see her in the hospital, hopefully.
Yeah, there's some funny rules around that, but I will essentially be able to stay in the birth centre during the day, and I'll have to go home at 10 p.m. I'll see if I can sneak around and stay, but yeah, that will have to be a kind of covert mission experiment, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of like a above or debuff situation using the video games analogy in your parenthood journey to parenthood, isn't it? Like the debuff of making things a bit inconvenient, but at the same time is quite a novel kind of experience for you.
Definitely novel. Yeah, to be our first child. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's the first child and becoming a parent. Yeah.
So it's gonna be 1 parent and 2 child podcasts in the future. What about you, Simon?
Well, actually, compared to that, I'm in the ordinary world. Looks like Alex will be going into, if we go to the monomyth, if we go to Hero's Journey, Alex going to a parenthood, you can't really go back. So you're going into that sort of the spiritual world. The things will change. You have to be looking after another human being. For me, I'm still in the ordinary world. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just where my life stage at. I would love to be a parent. And today, recently I've been trying to get exercise up. I've realised I've been a bit slacking in that, and so just more discipline, really. That's the overall thing in work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, trying to be consistently disciplined. That's the thing, not just one day or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like a big challenge.
Is that to do more healthy things, or is that to avoid more unhealthy things, Simon?
Both. If you get exercise, you can sort of burn a bit of fat off while you're somewhat trimming down your unhealthy eating habits. I'm not that unhealthy. It's more I've got a sweet tooth. So, and I'm trying to eat less throughout the day as well, because I don't really need to eat, especially in lockdown. I find myself.
So I lost you.
We lost you, Simon.
Well, he was going to say something like, especially during lockdown, he finds himself eating 10 buckets of ice cream a week. Something like that.
Yeah, sounds like good. Looks like he's reconnecting. Now, we can wait for a while.
And Gorgon.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you fill us in, Gorgon? How are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, while we're waiting for Simon, I've been doing alright actually. Very similar to Simon. That things are quite normal for me. A little bit tired this week somehow. And then I think a lot of the time it's due to not very active I guess lifestyle as well. But other than that, I am actually successfully passed my cultural competency in geek therapy. Yeah, so that's a celebration for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Is that one of the modules, or is that a certificate in geek therapy? What's that?
Yes, that's actually the first test that you will have to take before taking the full exam of geek therapy. So basically, you will have to take at least 12 training hours in training in geek therapy, and after that you have to take a test. It's a multiple choice kind of test, and if you pass that, it kind of suggests that you are or I am competent in this geek cultural and using it in my therapeutic work.
Fantastic. Wow, that's exciting. So now you can I guess you're already using that with your clients, and now you can build on that and do more study if you want to.
Yes, definitely. And the whole program needs about 40 hours of training, video training.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of halfway there. About how many more to go? About 30 more hours to go.
Nice.
So that's gonna be excited. I can see Simon is kind of back with us, and we have audio. Hello, welcome back, Simon.
Thank you. I didn't notice it froze, and then I had to quickly get out the app and so forth.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
No worries.
Let's go. You're back.
Yeah, I don't know where we left off. It's just the wheel just froze.
Now this happened in games as well, isn't it? That you meet a new challenge and you just have to react quickly.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, it's life.
Yeah. Do you want to continue your ice cream eating story, Simon?
No, I actually don't eat ice cream.
Okay.
I actually don't like ice cream. I've got sensitive teeth.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know. No, it's about the discipline, and because lockdown, it's easy to eat or overeat. So that's me. Shall we go to our subject of the matter? My computer is a bit frozy, so do you mind, Gorgon, to see what kind of, I guess, journey we can go on from this conversation? What would you say the first kind of computer games or game you've played when you first can ever remember?
Right. So we are getting into the first question. What is the first game you ever played? Ever. Well, I think as a child, I've engaged a lot in the physical. Or for me, I play a lot of physical kind of games. We have games like chasing each other or playing football with tin can and stuff. But what really stick to me is my first Lego or Lassie toys. I'm not sure if you guys have Lassie toys in New Zealand. As you're growing
up. The bigger ones,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's kind of bigger block kind of game that you can build things out of it. They have H shape and A shape, and yeah, Google it. I can send you a Google link later. So that
I remember them.
You remember them? Yeah. So that's my first ever game. Using creativity, build an engine out of it. Imaginary engine that is. And then so those stood out for me. And my first ever video game is on MS-DOS, where I learned to input command to move, I think, a turtle or a rabbit. Thingy. Yeah, so that's I played that on the school computer when I was in primary school. Yeah. So that's me. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, that last bit you mentioned about games being at school. Actually, the first game I would have played would have been at school as well, and it was called Pod, and it was like a little character that was on screen, and you would type a message, and it would. So you were prompted by Pod can, and then you had to write a message, and then you could, if the game could crunch that message, then he would do that thing. So I don't know how many things he was capable of doing, but we found as many as we could.
Wow.
So it was like pop, jump, squash, etc., etc. But I don't really count that as a real game.
Fair enough.
That was just a game that we had access to at school, so it was better than learning. It was better than learning what the teacher was trying to tell us to do. I think yeah, exactly. The first video game, I guess the first real video game I played was Alex Kidd in Miracle World on the Sega Master System, and I really liked that for obvious reasons, not just its name, and also they had a really good tune, really good sort of soundtrack to that one. And the first non-video game I played, I guess it would have been things like checkers, chess, cards, things that my parents had around the house. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Alex, for that, when you're playing Alex Kidd, because you're so young, did you completely immerse yourself in it because you just identified with that character because it's Alex and you're quite young and you would have been like, that's
definitely.
me.
Oh, man, I'm a huge narcissist. So any game or anything that mentions the name Alex, I assumed it was about me. Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's in that world or that stage of life, that's all you. And that it would make sense as a kid. Is that, it's my name. How many Alexes I know? 1 or 2? It's probably me then. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was definitely not aware at this time in my life of how many Alexes there were in the world.
You are one lucky kid, Alex.
Yeah. That's good.
And what about you, Simon? What's the first game you played?
So, well, like Gorgon, it was first. So I started off with Lego and just normal toys and so forth. But video games was quite special for me because it was like a big novelty. Oh my gosh, my dad just got a computer. You heard of a computer and all that, and they just got a computer. I didn't know if we were on computers at quite a young age. I think you had to be like about 10 or so to use computers at my school. So when my dad got a computer, it was like, whoa. And even the neighborhood, almost in a sense, because we're a bit in a country, it was like, whoa, they've got a computer. And then we got a computer. I think the first one I played, I can actually remember, this is different from what I played, is Jill the Jungle, like 1993 or 4. I would be like 7 or so, and it's just 2D side-scrolling, but you could jump and you could, So I remember playing something like that. And it was color as well, I remember we just, the things you take for granted now, like you look at that and you're like, what the heck? Or Duke Nukem, or Duke Nukem 2. And we're like, this is it. And
great games. Duke Nukem was excellent.
Yeah, and then when it's like 3D, as a big thing, Duke Nukem 3D. And we're like, oh.
I have never heard about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What kind of game is that?
Well, it started off like a side-scrolling one, and it's just a guy with his buzz blonde haircut, like a typical sergeant or so. And then later in the games is that it became 3D, and it's a guy who's got a singlet, and he's like almost like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it was a human.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the best way to explain that. or like almost like Wolfenstein.
All right.
Yeah.
Kind of get an idea around it.
Yeah, but when I first played it, was just it's pixels. It's basically like Mario.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the advanced technology at that time, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was. It was huge, Duke Nukem 3D. I think it was actually the first-person shooter that allowed you to jump.
Oh.
Before that, you'd been able to look around up and down, but then Duke Nukem took it to a new level.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you know what time that was?
Well, I can't remember the exact year, but it must be late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. Mid-late 90s. No. It must be the early 90s, eh?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh no, I think you're right. Mid to late. But that I guess gets me thinking about the genres of games throughout my life. So if I ask you that question, Alex, if you'd name maybe 7 to 11, what kind of genre of games were you playing around that time?
Yeah. I mean, this was the start of my love affair with video games. So I think mainly on the Sega again. I really loved the platformers. Of course, they were all over that console. So I used to play Super Pickles and Ghosts. Actually, that might have been a Mega Drive or a Nintendo game, but around that era. Wonder Boy was definitely there. Asterix, and what else I used to play on there? So there used to be a lot of beat 'em ups as well. So there was like Double Dragon, Golden Axe, fighting games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. Actually, that was more of an arcade game, actually. And pro wrestling. And then some sports games I used to get into, like Speedball, which might have been on the Amiga. So actually, I had quite a diverse experience of video games back then. Yeah. What about you, Gorgon, around that age range, 7 to 11?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really remember what I was doing at that age. But that is my kind of primary school age. And at that time, I don't have a computer at home. So I am... What comes to my mind is really the classic Game Boy games. You know, the original, the big brick Game Boy game that I think my cousin have it. So that's when I first being introduced to Mario, the classic Mario games. But at that time, I don't remember playing a lot of video games. I do go to the arcade a lot. So I think there's this robots fighting games. I'm not sure if you guys have played before with 2 joystick. It's not a Gundam, but it's almost like Gundam, and that's my closest fantasy of really playing a Gundam game. So I think some of these games and some shooting games in the arcade, Time Crisis, the one where you have to shoot and there's a paddle for you to hide, and so those are the games that I think I remember playing at that age. And of course, Pokemon trading cards. It's not technically a video game, but it's
still a game. That's fine.
Yeah. What about you, Simon? Do you remember what games do you play at that age?
Yeah, well, around that time, like I mentioned before, it's like the Jungle, Duke Nukem is what we had available. But even on what you were saying, I do remember the one you mashed, but it's actual physical game. You mash that button and it punches that guy's head and it bounces up.
Oh yeah,
that used to be really competitive. It used to be real serious. And even I guess that was around that time, maybe a bit after, is when my neighbours came over. So it's a bit more community oriented. But mainly this is sort of 2D games, and then basic side scrolling. We didn't have that much because it was 2 older brothers. Didn't have that much opportunity to game, if that makes sense. Not everyone had a computer in their room, so it was when it was available. So there wasn't that many games at that time.
I see.
Sure.
That's good.
Yeah. And what about, so if we go to the kind of next phase of life, which is say between 12 and 15 years old, Gorgon, what were you playing around that age?
12 to 15. Well, yeah, I think at that age, my game genre has kind of expanded a little bit because started to go into kind of well, in Malaysia we call standard 6. So it's kind of the end of the primary school and into high school. And because I know more of people at that time, my genre would be kind of an RPG, Pokemon Blue on Game Boy as well. I think that's the first console that I've ever got. Negotiating with my dad, saying that, hey, I'm gonna get 5 A's if you buy me this Game Boy now. I guess my dad learned that never trust his son negotiation because I only get 3 A's.
That was well negotiated, eh?
Yeah, that's
either you were really good or your dad was a really bad negotiator. he walked straight into that one, eh?
Yeah, so maybe he's just too trusting. I don't know. Who can resist this cute face? But anyway, yeah. So I play a lot of RPG games. So Pokemon Blue, and I do remember playing SimCity on my cousin's PC at the time. I didn't own a gaming PC, but SimCity was quite huge during that age when I'm growing up. It's the very old school. It's not very well at that time. It's quite advanced because you can literally build the whole city out of it. So simulation game. I do have some. I guess experience playing them. 12
so would this be the early 2000s? Is that right?
Yes, around there. Yeah, about 2001, 2, 3. Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, I played my first Final Fantasy VII during that age as well, around that time, and was a fan since then. FF7, that is, because of the vast world that I can play in. Counter-Strike, so first-person shooter, some fighting games, and what else did I play? Oh, and also, I don't know how you label this. I label as others. Crash 8 Bandit and Mario Kart. It's not really racing, but at the same time, there's a racing element in there where you can use item to shoot other people.
Yeah. Should we try and come up with a name for that genre, assuming it's not kart racing? Should we call it battle racing or something? Or
battle racing?
What would you call it?
Yeah. What do you call it, Simon?
Oh, is it Destruction Derby kind of thing? I remember playing, but you know how they just destroy each other or something. But with guns, I don't.
Yeah. I have no idea. I have no idea. Funny racing car games. Yeah. So and I do play strategy game. Command Conquer, Red Alert. My favorite is I'm not sure if you recognize this, and I'm gonna make a fool out of myself. Cha-ching! That's the one of the character, Tanya.
Yeah. Definitely remember that. That voice cut.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So so that's that was me when I was 12 to 15. What about you?
Now I like to say, Alex is about 5 years ahead of us, so his time frame would be a bit behind us. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So being a not
or ahead, depending on how you look at it.
Yes.
Say ahead. Yeah. What about you, Simon?
So around that time, so if I sum it up, basically, if I do it real quickly, when I was young, it was about 7 to 11. Around that time, it was more single player and then around 11 to 15, I would say 11 to 17, 16 is single player with offline multiplayer. And so my cousins now had not just computer, but they had consoles now. Consoles became a thing. And every house would have a console and a computer. And then not only, because you got to remember this time, technology has changed that you didn't have dial-up. So dial-up was really hard to use because people were on a phone and only was so slow. It's not, at least at that time for us, there's a lot more proper sort of internet where we've got sort of now. And that allowed more of more people access it, but also to communicate it. So this time I started playing not online with strangers, but with my neighbors or my friends, or just even the friends will come over and we can play next to each other, not necessarily online. So this was a sort of a stage where I did a lot more multiplayer games with my friends, family, and my and neighbors and so forth, community. So a lot of GoldenEye, a lot of even like Donkey Kong. There's, I don't know, Snowball Kids. There'd be heaps of ones. Even we would have a turn each, so they would come over and we'd play a game and each have a turn each or death each or something. You know what I mean? So it's all fair. So that was this, and the next stage, following stage, was more when it became more online. Yeah, but I could go over and over. We played a lot of games. Let's just say that.
Nice.
And as for you, Alex?
Should we move on to the next phase, which would be like 16 to 20? For me, I mean, like, I'll be completely honest. Like, I became interested in girls at that point. So there's a black period in my games history there, and that's about it.
So a game of relationship.
Romantic, I did want to explore relationships. Is the healthier way of saying it. Simon,
Nice.
you?
Well, previously mentioned it would be I was more into online games, but you're right as well. Girls, is that around that age became, you're still playing video games? Is a bit of that stigma or a bit of that discourse I had. But I also started playing online, so maybe I didn't have as many as cousins or something over us or friends, but it was more situated of online friends, and that's when I started making online friends. But at the same time, I also definitely had a bit of a blank spot as well, because you are sort of finding your place and leaving school and so forth. I would say after 20 or 21, it was to 25. It's just, not many games.
Interesting.
And what about you, Gorgon, in that time?
Yeah, interesting because I think our life at the time, at least our gaming life, is very similar as well, because reflecting back between 16 and 17 or late 15 actually, I don't really have a lot of video game experience except from Ragnarok Online, which is an MMORPG. So I've moving from a lot of single player type of game into more multiplayer type of game, and the reason why I am interested in that MMORPG Ragnarok Online is because my friends are playing it, most of them, and the ability again, to I guess play your fantasy out, role playing, who am I as a person. So those concepts started, and it stops when I was I'm 17. That's when things the final year exams and going to university, and I guess eventually it reached its end, Ragnarok Online. And in university, again, I don't play that much game. Probably some RPG, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2, Final Fantasy Dissidia. It's kind of fighting games as well.
It's online or?
There's an online element, but I play with myself and one of my university friend, because we each own a PSP, PlayStation Portable. So we kind of take it to classroom, before class, after class, we will just fight with each other. So again, it kind of surround between my friends. So I'm playing games when my friend or what my friend is playing.
this is more physically in the room with friends.
Yes.
Because around that time is also when LAN, like, I don't know if people, newer generation would know too much about LAN, but around that time is when I was about LANing with friends, is actually physically in the room.
Yeah.
I love this idea that have you ever seen these videos on YouTube or TikTok videos where like sort of a millennial parent is like trying to show like a Gen Z or a younger kid, like, here's a cassette tape, what do you do with this? And they're like, I love the idea that like one day there's going to be this video where you like pass a kid like a network cable and they're like, what do I do with this? Like,
Avatar.
where does it go? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, the wireless is gonna be the future, man.
And at the same time, you know, when you're old, when you look back at that stuff, you're like, wait, do people know it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It shows that we are old.
Yeah.
So that was it. Yeah. Hey, I kind of lose track of things.
We got up to about 21 years old.
Yeah.
Well, as for me, there's a big blank spot. So how about we go, now you're an adult, well, officially by, society, from this time, don't get me started on that, this time onwards to now. What about that?
So 20 to now, isn't it? 21 to now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
around that time.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, cool. That around that time, I really got into the GameCube, and like I guess like you guys have been saying about like a lot of my focus then was around social interaction. So I wanted to play games where I was playing with other people, usually on the couch, and first-person shooters. We were huge into those. James Bond and also Time Splitters. Yeah, that one was excellent. Still played a few fighting games. Of course, Super Smash Bros was in there. And I kind of had played horror games before this stage, but I got really into it at this point, and that's probably just because Resident Evil 4 was so excellent at the time. And then sports games were huge in that era as well. So NBA Street, I still play NBA Street occasionally with my friends, like so good. NBA Street, it was kind of like, I don't know, if you didn't play a lot of NBA games back then, like NBA Jam, it was like that.
Okay, I was wondering, was it mainly single player or multiplayer, or was it like who you're playing with?
They're all multiplayer, and you could play them with up to 4 people. So that was a really good one. What else did I have here? Action adventure, of course. Like I loved Zelda and Metroid Prime on that console. The music games like Guitar Hero and some platformers like the new Super Mario Bros. And then the same thing happened again with the Wii later on. Pretty much the same type of games, except that I got a bit more into these exploration games as well, like one with a story, like Gone Home. And RTS had a comeback for me when Command & Conquer was remastered recently.
And then you got into the game industry around that time, or?
Yeah, so in the middle of my early 30s, I got into the games industry, and so I probably, definitely stopped playing as many games then, because most game developers will tell you when they've been designing and thinking about games all day, it's kind of less compelling to play games on the weekend. So that was true for me. And Simon, what about you in the age bracket, 21 till now?
I had a bit of a break, like I mentioned previously, and then as life changes around you, you sort of mold yourself into the environment, adapt. So for me, I started to use more games. So I'll talk about how I use games rather than the games, because there's so many. Because I would just go through games, like I'll clock one game, next game, clock one game. There's a sense of achievement in a sense and around that time is like, how many games can I do? Almost, if that makes sense. So it's a big span. But I would say and how I use game was just I just want to finish it, and then at the same time it was sort of a bit of a it became more of an escapism kind of route, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't novelty so much, and other things you had to juggle. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't know. Is that I started realizing, or maybe reflecting back on, is that games were also using up a lot of time. And I had to sort of finish it, and I wanted bang for buck. So you get like $10 game for 40 hours or something. You're like, yeah, rather than like put $40 into this game, which is an 8-hour, first-person shooters or something. Used to be just 8 hours for the campaign. If that. So it became, and then I started realizing time was sort of like almost like a currency, and then until. Yeah, probably about in my later 20s, I started to realize, okay, I want to be a bit more directive of my games or what I want to play. And probably in my 30s now, I've just come to be, if I'm playing a game, I want to be a bit more intentional about it. And probably just more like the last couple of years. So that's sort of the theme of me playing video games, and what's mainly story, what narrative, like almost rather than reading a book, I can sort of read what they're trying to portray to me, and I can immerse myself in the story too, rather than watching a video as well. So that's become more of a recent thing now. Yeah, we could jump over to Gorgon.
Yeah, well, I kind of in between here because you have definitely covered some of the question in that we're gonna explore later. But before we go into that, I've actually have a kind of 2-3 years gap where I don't play game at all. That is between I think age 20 to 24. Actually, that's more than 2 years, but yeah. And reflecting back, I think that's because I kind of went into working force, and at the time I was kind of like working, dating, so it's kind of it takes up lots of time and energy and effort, and I don't have a good gaming laptop or a console back then at that age, as I was just coming out from graduation and trying to find my way around working life. So at that time, I don't really play games, but I start picking up my game when I first came to New Zealand in 2013 with my then girlfriend, now wife. Yeah, and I remember buying my first console or first Xbox 360 from this new magic place called Trade Me. That's my first introduction.
Did you buy it before you had a bed as well? The first thing you bought?
And I like to say, by the way, people not in New Zealand, that's like a what's it called? eBay. Yeah. It's like a New Zealand eBay.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, but from Trade Me, I forgot how much I paid for it, $50 to $100 at the time, and that's when I started playing Halo, a lot Minecraft, and I guess at that time I was feeling the gap of a little bit of what changed for me in that sense is feeling the gap of my home country at that time. Yeah, so which I would dive deep a little bit more into it later, because this leads to a good segue of what attracts you in each of the genre you played throughout your life.
Is that for me?
Yeah, Alex.
Cool. Yeah. So what of those? Yeah. What was I attracted to in those genres throughout my life? Well, yeah, I gave this some thought earlier, and one of the ways I was looking at this at least was if we were talking about psychotherapeutic concepts, was through the life stages perspective. That's Erik Erikson's model of the life stages, and definitely I recognize that in my teens, even before that, about sort of 9 onwards into my teens, I was playing these games where I was exercising skill and competence, and I was competing a lot with my friends, and we were trying to upskill and learn and get better and better at things. So that reflects that life stage of I think around 9 till teenage years. And then but later on, when I get to my like you guys have said, I got to my mid-teens and later, and other things were pulling me, and I think that was a lot about belonging, which is where I started to explore relationships, particularly with girls, because of course I was a love-addicted young boy, again, like if I lay over that life stages thing, following that into my early adulthood and up until now, I think it has a lot to do with love and care, and now growing towards sharing of wisdom. So love being that I wanted to share experiences with my friends while I was playing games. That was one of my favorite pastimes with them. And of course, I always wanted to kind of, for everyone else to be involved and learn. So I can remember being in the lounge with my friends when we were flatting together and kind of teaching the new people that had entered the room how to play Wii Sports or something like that. No, you got to let the trigger go at the right time, otherwise you're not going to get the bowling right. So yeah, I've always had this very caring side of my personality as well. And yeah, of course, now that I'm a game developer and I do mentoring and a bit of coaching, like I try to pass on my skills more than actually kind of practice them myself now. So yeah, that was one way that I looked at it. What about you, Gorgon, when it comes to what attracted you to these genres of games throughout your life? Yeah.
No, I'm just reflecting what the story that you told, Alex, is really from inwards towards outward, like you fulfilling the fun and enjoyment in there, to right now you're looking at connecting with people and teaching them. That's an interesting transformation there.
Yeah. It was nice to reflect on that, about how that's all kind of been relevant in my life. Yeah,
and I like how you introduce Erickson stages. That's interesting. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go very quickly about those genres that really attracts me. They are normally around, again, RPG, MMORPG, simulations, and immersion. So it's really living my fantasy and things that I could not really do in real life. And especially when I first introduced to GTA 3, I think. I forgot which one, Vice City. So it's you going GTA around 3. Whacking people and riding a tank, causing havoc in a city. Those things really pump up my adrenaline. So that kind of helps too. And the social aspect of it, even up until now, I think what changed in that sense for me is I'm looking for games that can connect me with people. So I'm playing Monster Hunter Rise at the moment because it connects me back to my friends in Malaysia, because they all play the same game. We have Switch, we enjoy that. I'm playing Ashen with Simon because so I'm actually constantly looking for people to play with, especially when I'm in New Zealand. And I guess as an immigrant or someone who migrate from overseas, most of my social network was in Malaysia. And here in New Zealand, I have always been wanting to have this connection, but in the past, it did not really happen to me because I couldn't find similar wavelength people. So I think that changed in a while in terms of motivation of playing game, and I'm actually referring to one of the motivation model by Yi 2006. I can put up some visual in the YouTube podcast in the future, and I can share with both of you lads later. But basically, Yi kind of categorize games into three main motivation. So achievement, immersion, and social. We can unpack that later in the future. But I think for me, I have always had this social aspect in me for gaming. I think that doesn't change. But I'm kind of logging it more because of the absence of it. And immersion has always been there too. Achievement is the one that has changed a lot because I used to want to achieve a lot when I was younger. But right now, it's not so much of that. Yeah, so in terms of the change of genre that attracts me, I think that has changed. But I always enjoy immersion and social.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And to go off that, I would, to follow that, Gorgon, I see those three ones, and I would definitely, like, if I had to choose one, it'd be definitely immersion. And I'm trying to actually find more of a balance. I find a bit similar to you that I've gone through the stages, and then I find that there's aspects if I focus on just one, and sometimes I might hyper focus on something too much, that I just spend just on that. But that's there. I like how it's related to where you were situated, like in New Zealand, and finding that connection and that home. And that's even Erickson's stage. I think it's like generalization or stagnation. Or generativity, I think, something like that. That's sort of finding your home, finding your feet. Yeah. And sorry to steal that from you, Gorgon. Hopefully I didn't interrupt you when you weren't finished.
No.
Okay.
I think I finished.
Time to jump in.
No, good jumping in there. Summarizing it. Yeah. So that has been the journey, and things have changed. And to follow on that, I guess as a psych background and kind of behavioral train in my first year of training in New Zealand, I do enjoy looking at the function of the motivation, because I think that's the core of why we do what we do. And it's good to reflect on that because we definitely have aged. We are no longer teenager anymore, and so what we do with our gaming time, it does change as well. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, well, to go off that, I think even Alex started it is that it's going through life stages in a sense, and you are maturing and you are growing older, and you don't want to be stagnated. Ideally, you do get older and you do sort of remember back on the good times and so forth. But like I mentioned previously, I would be immersion, and under immersion would be role playing. I would, but not role playing is like I would wear the stuff, but role playing is that the storyline, character, the lore, all the stuff that's been something more recently, or more since I was later in the stages, when I was maybe 20s and late 20s, early 30s. Because when I was young, it was more competitive, like who's, but that reflected my environment as well. Like I mentioned previously, I had a bit of a gap, but I was also traveling. And then when I got back to New Zealand, I sort of had a new friend group, or found new, even what to study, faith, so forth. So I had a whole new sort of starting afresh. And then games became more social in that sense because of the connection. And then once I sort of established friendships, and they didn't really carry on with the games, I sort of then did narrative storytelling, role playing to do my sort of not fixation, but that sort of interest in things. And going back to what you're saying, Gorgon, you find playing with your friends on Monster Hunter and even Ashen, is that I find myself I need to probably have more balance in that social aspect of things.
Right.
I still have that achievement and immersion part always there.
and that's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, it's okay. As long as you know what area, I think it's interesting to know what area that you probably need to expand or explore a bit more of, so you sort of have that more balance.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Fair enough. What about you, Alex? I'm not sure if you have think of your gaming motivation in such structure before.
Well, it's just reflecting on what you guys saying about this immersive thing, and I think it's true as well. Like at some point, I think I kind of can't decide whether it was my interest or whether it was the kind of what the technology allowed. But at some point, this idea of immersion and aesthetics and really, I guess, like, it allowed me in those games, I would call like The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess 1, Metroid Prime, these games where I felt like fully immersed in the experience. It allowed me to really empathize and feel a lot in response to those games, whereas, like I mentioned before, a lot of the experience I was having was about skill and upskilling. It's kind of adrenaline based and stressy, and that's fun. So yeah, I can understand what you mean by that, and I think if you think about it from another psychotherapy lens, it's like I guess that allowed me to project a lot onto the games and characters, by which I mean I was able to live out fantasy, of a hero's journey, for example, with Zelda. I definitely, I think I mentioned last time, I resonated with these character stories like Batman's, but the same with Samus and Metroid Prime, with this kind of like theme of kind of melancholic isolation, but exploring it and perseverance at the same time. So yeah, I definitely projected a lot and empathized and enjoyed that experience. Similar with Resident Evil 4, actually. Yeah.
And projection is basically in our daily life, isn't it? Whatever that we do, whoever that we engage in, and games that we are doing, it's certain kind of projection over there. And then I like the way you say how gaming, you can project yourself into the character, and I think it can be vice versa as well. That I remember playing, I think, Star Wars, the Knight of Republic, where because I myself, again, not a very confident person, but upon playing the game, I can see myself using what I did in the game, projecting back to myself, saying that, hey, I can do that in game. Maybe I have that in me to maybe socialize in my real life as well, and that's a constant growth even up until now. Like playing even playing Zelda, the Breath of the Wild. I think that is my first game, and I love it so much because so many counter transference going on in the whole concept of the game and the journey. So it's cool.
And for people, counter transference is a bit like projection. Sometimes even you use that term, you forget. Maybe and that's neither is bad. It's just the best way to sort of is projection and projection back. But yes, that.
Thank you, Simon, for keeping us in check.
That's not transference, but everything is projection.
Yeah, that's true.
I can give a good example of projection that I enjoyed. So in The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild that Gorgon was just talking about, there is a character named what's his name? Hen? Oh no, I'm going to forget his name. Anyway, the jolly character who wants you to bring him all the little
Korok.
Koroks, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when you first. Oh, I'm going to spoil something if I say this, but anyway, when you first encounter him, he needs rescue. I won't say any more than that. Yeah. and I got really into that little quest. Like I was like, oh no, like he's being attacked by these guys there. So I remember going like, feel like a real hero, like running up the hill and then diving over and rescuing this character. And I was like, that really got me going. Like, and that's because I have this tendency and value of helping and healing and rescuing and that sort of stuff. So that quest was perfect for me, and that's because I projected all my feelings of protection and heroism and protectionism, I think, onto the character Link in that role. So
no. And
cool.
and I think the game developer itself have done a very good job in making Link a silent kind of character. That it gives more opportunity that you can project your own personality on him, and
that's true.
So that's pretty good. Yeah. So go Simon.
Well, I would go with that. Even what you're following off, basically both of you, is that you immerse yourself in there, and then that immersion, ideally, not to lose yourself in there, but to take those tools or the learning, whatever scrolls, if you want to put it, gamify it, back with you to reality, and then apply it there. It seems that that's quite a big thing for both, especially even Gorgon, how you find yourself that, and it's a constant thing. Is that what can I do to keep? Would you say courage or confidence from what I get in the game onto reality?
Yeah, I think it's both.
Offline world.
Yeah, I think it's both. It's learning the repertoire, learning what could have been done, or just modeling. I think at the end of the day, children learn by playing, and my thought is, why stop there? Yeah.
And for Alex, would that be your story? Would that be more around like what was sort of important for you that time? Like even you can even explore values and so forth. But I
guess what I was tapping into there was fear and bravery, and I don't want to over psychoanalyze it, but I was acting on these impulses of fear and bravery. There's sort of the push and pull of those two things within myself. I
was going to finish off with there's a lot of things that can help you to change you in life. I guess that games can be that fun, but like you mentioned before, Gorgon, that they can really help you to learn and to enact change as well, which is good.
And for that you have to have the lens to look out for it. Because we can mindlessly consume all this entertainment, but we sometimes we don't have the lens to look through it. And now, listener, that you have listened to this podcast, this episode, maybe you can actually start putting the lens of, hey, what have I gained from this, and what am I projecting, or what am I learning from the character. Are we wrapping up here, or are we? Well, I was gonna say we are kind of 1 minute to 1 hour, so it's a good.
As long as it's cold, Alex. As long as it's cold.
And I think it's a good point to start wrapping things up.
It sounded like a wrap up. Huh?
Well, our conversation have reached a natural wrapping up then.
That's good.
But
it's good.
But I do enjoy this episode.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
No, I liked your finishing point. That was a good one.
No, it was. You summed it up really well.
Oh well,
it's a lens, and I would add one little thing, and you can add one thing, right, Alex?
Not 1.5. Yeah. 1.
No, I get 1, and Alex gets 30 seconds. No, to go off Google and say it's a lens, and to know it's not either good or bad. It's not, not to go to that black and white thinking. Sometimes it's a bit complicated. Sometimes it's how you use it. Sometimes it's the environment and who you're using it with. So not to fall into the black and white kind of thinking is that then gaming's bad. There's a pathology of things. It's a more maybe nuance, or more of there's more layers to it, like an onion and so forth, that lens.
It's a contextual based. And that's the main philosophy of ACT, isn't it? I'm name dropping a lot of stuff. I'll talk about it in the future. Not this episode, but ACT is a counseling modality that we use. Anyway, Alex.
30 seconds. Yeah, I'll just say that I've enjoyed that we've put out there some words, some language today that are thrown around in pop psychology a little bit, like projection and life stages, etc. It's nice that we've applied them to something of our own experience, and I think I hope that gives some of our listeners a bit more understanding of those things as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, to finish off, let me have the honor to finish this episode off by saying, I think I would like to see us in the future to really narrow the topic down to maybe one or two thing, let's say unpacking Legend of Zelda, and then we can really go deep into it. So this is my thought for now. A listener, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are, hopefully, you can tell us, what kind of content that you would like us to talk about in the future. How deep do you want us to go? How vast of various of our topic do you want us to talk about? Leave us a comment. Yeah. What about you, Simon and Alex? What do you think about our conversation today?
It's good. Enjoyed it. We'll continue. It will develop. It will keep growing. And there's room for improvement. And there's also, it's good that we've got this dialogue between you guys. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're onto something good here, and I think it will get deeper as it needs to. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, any last word? No.
Ciao.
See you. Go well. I know this is not May and all, but may the force be with you, listener.
Kia kaha.
All right.
Kia kaha.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.